For this outline, your goal is to think of 3 or more claims, 2 or more counterarguments, create a thesis statement, and consider your audience and call to action. So I want you to start by just writing the topic and your position. It does not need to be in complete sentences. For example, I could simply say school uniforms, agree. Or I could write school uniforms should be implemented. Or school uniforms equals good. It really doesn't matter. I just want to make sure at the top of the page that you have your topic and position. Next, you're going to list 3 or more claims. So these should be in your own words, not copy and pasted from sources. They can be inspired by research you did, but they should not be the exact words from another source. These claims should be written as complete sentences, and they should support your thesis. In other words, they are the main claims, topics, ideas that support your overall position. Next, I want you to think of 2 or more counterarguments. These are the opponent's claims. So, in other words, they are what contradict your position. They are what someone arguing against you would potentially say. If you would like to, you can include a refutation or concession in this outline for the counterarguments, meaning refuting means to prove it wrong or to show why it's not the best choice or why it doesn't give a full picture. Or concession means that you are conceding, you are admitting that part of this might be true, that there is validity to that claim. When you concede, you want to make sure you always bring it back to your side of the argument to show that while part of the other side is valid, your position is still the stronger one. Finally, you're going to build a thesis statement from those claims and counterarguments. You do not need to address every single claim or every single counterargument, but what I would like you to do is pick the 3 claims that you think are going to be the focus of your paper. You can always go back and change this later if you realize you want to reword or focus on another claim. But I want you to create a thesis that states the topic and position and then includes the 3 claims in parallel structure and addresses the main counterargument. Notice I said main counterargument because there should be sort of an overarching idea to your counterargument, or maybe you focus on what you think is the opponent's strongest claim on the other side. You are not stuck with the thesis you create, so don't feel that if you write one today, you have no opportunity to change it for your paper. You absolutely can. This is all part of the writing process, but I would like you to attempt to make a thesis that hits everything it will need to get the highest score possible in your paper. So for example, if one of my counter arguments for school uniforms is that they are monotonous, that they remove self-expression, then I might start my thesis by saying, although some students feel that school uniforms limit self-expression, and now I've covered my main counter-argument, but then I want my wording to focus on my position and my claims, right? I've said the topic of school uniforms already, so following the counter-argument, which says, although some students feel that school uniforms limit self-expression, comma, they should still be implemented as they promote unity, claim 1, reduce peer pressure and bullying, claim 2, and enhance school safety, claim 3. All of those are written in parallel structure. My position is clear that school uniforms should be implemented, so I will have met all the requirements there. I think I said finally earlier, but really finally now. The last thing I want you to put on this outline is who your target audience is and a call to action for that audience. What I mean by this is, obviously, you're writing this paper for school. I know, I'm your audience, Mrs. Chancy, but unless you're writing about homework or something specific to English or school, even if it is something like uniforms, am I really the person you need to persuade, or is there an audience who you could think of as you are creating your argument as the target audience for you to persuade? For example, if I were arguing this topic of school uniforms, maybe my target audience is the high school administration at Mount Perrin Christian School. If I am arguing something about animal rights, maybe I am arguing to PETA, or I'm making an argument to a makeup company that uses animals for testing. I want you to think about your intended audience, because really, anytime we are writing an argument, we should be thinking about what would my audience be thinking? Is my audience for me, against me? Do I need to include more emotional appeal, logical appeal? Do the ethos matter, right? Is my credibility important? And so I think this is a good opportunity to think about that. So you'll just write who your intended audience is. And then this might seem a little strange. I actually want you to think of your very last sentence of the paper, which I call the call to action. So, how can you call your intended audience to take action, to make a change, to show support, or to think differently, to move forward in a new direction now that you have maybe convinced them to adopt your position? Or even if you don't feel confident you will have completely changed your audience's mind, what can your audience do now that your audience has heard your perspective and your position? All right, so that's what I want you to do on this thesis and outline document. If you have questions, of course, ask, and I wish you the best of luck.